Welcome to the On the Spot podcast, where we talk to people from all walks of life and recovery. Brought to you by your favorite sober lounge. It's The Spot. It's on 43rd Avenue in Northern and Phoenix, Arizona, where they host several meetings every day, cultivate a positive environment of fellowship and recovery that supports sponsorship in the 12 steps. It's also a nonprofit that does a lot of good for people in and outside of the rooms. Today, we have a very, very special guest, star of stage and screen, international sensation. You know him from such films as The Rundown, Jumanji, Doom, Moana, and The Smashing Machine, just to name a few. Maybe you smelled what he was cooking when he was the people's champ in WWE. This is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Man, dude, I'm sorry. This keeps happening. I'm really sorry. Our research girl, Vanessa, is in a real bad way. She got caught stealing hygiene products from CVS, so she's in jail this week. So prayers for her. Actually, upon further review, here's a man who actually is a powerhouse in recovery. He helps a ton of men get sober and is also a part of a men's group that I attend. And he practices these principles in all of affairs. This is Andrew S. How are you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. How you doing?
I'm great, dude. Thank you again for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's Andrew W., by the way.
Andrew W?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to leave that in. Mistakes happen in recovery. But yeah, so all right, let's explain a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do, and then we'll just sort of get into things.
Okay. What do you want? Just a 10,000-foot overview or what?
Sure, yeah. Kind of give us the movie trailer version, I guess.
Yeah, so I've been sober since 11/23/2020. I have a sponsor. I talk to him every day. I got a home group. I got service commitments. I sponsor a grip of dudes, in the book, and I got guys with, long-term sobriety that I sponsor. And yeah, man, I mean, I've been doing this for a minute. It all really started in 2020 when the FBI kicked down my door. And, I was facing 40 years in federal prison. And, I was kind of at a crossroads right there where it was, well, I get two choices I can do. I can either kill myself or I don't know what to do, bro. And, through a long line of events and happenings and a federal judge who didn't want to let me out on my own OR, they sent me to Crossroads. And that's kind of where this whole entire journey started. But, it was crazy because I didn't wanna get sober. That was never, ever in my wheelhouse, and I mean, I've been smoking crack since I was 14 years old. I've been pretty much abused everything but opiates to, an extreme extent, and, yeah, there was no desire to get sober at all, man, but, I got forced to go there, and it was like, "Well, if you don't stay, you go back to federal detention." I stuck around long enough, and I opened my ears and shut my mouth, and, at some point during that, clarity kicked in, man, and, the rest is history.
I mean, it's usually a pretty good sign when the FBI kicks down your door that it's time to make some serious life changes. Yeah, man. But I mean, yeah, it sounds like, I mean, readiness isn't really a requirement, which is great for most of us because I wasn't ready, but I was willing, and and that I can, like, we can work with willing. But, so yeah, like what was Crossroads like for you when you first got there? Was it something that you kinda did it take a minute for you to get used to being in that environment? Like, had you been in jail or halfway houses or had experience with the recovery previous to that?
I got sober when I was, like, 17 years old, and I was in treatment for 3 months, and I never did AA. I mean, I got my first introduction to AA there, but I was a staunch atheist my whole life, and I read the steps, I'm like, "Fuck that." And, so I knew what AA was, and, up until there, I've always been like, "Screw this AA thing," because, the US Marshals brought me to Crossroads, and, I remember, it was Thanksgiving Day, I was in the federal courthouse, and they slid me a piece of paper, and it said, "You're gonna sign this and acknowledging that what you're going to is a spiritual-based program," and dude, I will tell you, I thought long and hard, I was like, "You know what? Screw this, man, I'm gonna go back to jail." And then I remembered that I snore really bad, and I was in a cell with 17 Pisces who literally wanted to beat me to death every morning when I woke up because of my snoring, and I'm like, "I guess I'll go to Crossroads." So, it was begrudgingly, and, it's interesting what you said about willingness because it really wasn't even willingness I had, man. It was desperation, really, of not even the willingness to get sober. It was like, don't want to be in jail right now. And I'm just going to go there. I'm going to beat my case. I knew I had 10,000 fentanyl and $10,000 still stashed that I could go get. And then I could just pick up where I left off. Like there was no desire to get sober. I was so deluded. I was like, it's during COVID. I probably won't actually have to serve time. I can beat my case. I can murder the people who snitched on me. There was all sorts of possibilities of what I could do, but none of it was like, hey, I'm going to get sober. I'm going to change my life. That just wasn't there. And it wasn't wanted. It wasn't desired. And it was, I don't know. It's weird because I think that's a big thing I hear in the rooms. And it really pisses me off when people say, you're going to want this for yourself. That's bullshit, man. You don't. If you had to get into recovery because you want your kid back, great. I think that's better than having no reason, right? I mean, whatever the motivation is for you to get there, work off that, dude. And, hopefully at some point during the process, clarity will kick in and then you'll be like, holy shit, this is way bigger than just my kid. But whatever it takes to get you in the door is what it takes to get you in the door, man. So,
I
yeah.
agree. And, and like it even says in the book, we came to scoff and then stayed to pray,
Mhm.
So like whatever gets you in the door, I think at some point in time that though that clarity and that willingness does kick in because, God shows up in our lives in so many different ways, like your story is a lot similar to mine. Like when I was 19, I got forced into a rehab because, when you fail so many drug tests on probation, they send you to jail and then they say, hey, you're going to rehab. And, and I did, and I just did my 30 days and I heard of AA and like saw the guys in AA and thought it was super lame and like I thought they were some kind of like Christian church group that like did all this weird stuff. Like I didn't get it, at 19, but I knew there was a solution at least. Yeah, I mean, it just the meetings never then it never really hit me until I tried later on in life, but yeah, like I was not like this time around. Like I didn't have enough self worth to do anything for myself. Like when I showed up, it wasn't to do it for me. It was to do it so that I like didn't die. I was like, I'm gonna give myself one more chance. Do I think I'm worth it? No, but like let's just see what happens. I was just tired of being homeless.
Right, right. And, I think that's an important point you make is, depression has also been a huge part of my story and mental illness. And it's really hard to get sober, dude, if you just don't give a shit. Like, why would you get sober if I literally wake up every day and don't care if I live or die? So, I think a big thing of, I guess I never really answered your question, what was Crossroads like? When I first got there, I mean, I wanted to die. And the other thing is I was suffering from incredible acute anxiety because literally I would be sitting there and all I could think of is, I'm going to prison for 40 years. What's the fucking point of doing any of this? Right. So, I always tell people, I suffer from two great problems. The one is that I live in my shame, my guilt, and my remorse of living in the past. And the other one is I live in the future freaking out about shit that hasn't happened yet. But the only place I'm never actually alive and present is here, which is the only thing that exists. Right? So for me, when I got to Crossroads, first of all, it came down to getting me mentally stabilized, which they put me on some hydroxyzine and they put me on an antidepressant, so I wasn't literally walking around looking for a 6-foot rope. And once that got stabilized, man, then I started thinking a little clearly. But dude, honestly, it took me at least a year, maybe two, before I started feeling okay. And just recently, man, I mean, at 5 years, I'm finally my neurochemistry is getting to the point where I have motivation, the anhedonia is gone, I'm actually finding pleasure in doing hobbies and stuff like that. That took a long time to come back, man. I mean, meth, like, really cooks your brain, and, it's been a battle, definitely, the mental health aspect of it. So I
Yeah,
think
meth
it's a
meth in this heat really does cook your brain. Like the
Yeah,
heat in
yeah.
Arizona is insane.
Right, right, but and I think, I mean, I love AA, man, but AA is not gonna help your PTSD, it's not gonna help your clinical depression, and you need to seek outside help for that stuff, and that's what I always tell people, man, because, like, how are you gonna get sober if you just don't care? Or if you're so screwed up from your trauma that you're constantly dissociated and going into survival mode. When you're in survival mode, man, you're not actually able to live, and that's really what they're talking about in the book. When they're talking about living in self-will, they're really talking about, if you strip the spiritual mumbo jumbo out of it, is you're in survival mode, man. I'm in fight or flight mode. I'm reacting to everything around me. I don't have forethought. I don't have insight. I'm just literally trying to regulate my nervous system from one moment to the next. And that's sometimes what you got to heal first.
I agree 100%. Like I had to seek outside help and like I still do, you know? I mean, and it helps. It's a tool. I need it, you know? And like it's if it stops me from jumping off a bridge that day, like it's a fucking win. Like, you know? And like if it helps me sort out all the shit so that I can be of use and of service to others, that's a great thing too, you know? And like a byproduct of that is it helps me think a little clearer. It helps me, you know, engage in like the things that I need to because when I first got sober this time around, I was so depressed that, like, I didn't wanna even it was hard to get out of bed most days, you know what I'm saying? Luckily, I was in a spot where they kinda forced us to, but if it wasn't for that and, you know, like, I tell everybody, "Don't be ashamed. If you need more than what AA offers, get it." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, seek outside help. Like, you're in here to save your life. Nobody's gonna judge you for doing what you need to save your life.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, dude. I mean, because I sponsor most of the dudes I sponsor to have been through it. You know, like I don't sponsor dudes that have full-time jobs and a family. Everyone I sponsor is fresh out of prison, been homeless, has trauma. That's across the board. So, I mean, dude, I find out about them. I'm like, all right, here's what we need to do. We're going to do the steps, but I need you to go talk to someone. Right? Like there's stuff that I am not going to be able to help you with, and it's beyond me, and I have no right to even try to help you with this because I'm not a professional.
And that's the crazy thing about trauma, like, for me anyway, it, like, created more trauma in my life because of the way I reacted to it, I just put myself in situations that created much more stress, much more trauma. Because even, like, when we're running the streets and we're doing our thing, like that is a stressful, traumatic thing to have to look over your shoulder all the time, to wonder if you're going to prison that day, to wonder if somebody you know is going to rob you, you know, like that stuff is horrible. And then, you know, eventually all that leads for me always to like homelessness, despair, and that creates trauma. And like I always tell people, I'm like, dude, like no matter how well monetarily you think you were doing out there, these streets are undefeated. I've seen the best of the best do it, and like they don't win. You know, like they're undefeated. So, you know, at some point in time, the shoe's going to drop, and it's either going to be on your terms or theirs. So, you know, you got to pick.
Yeah, no, you what you described as survival mode, right? I mean, dude, like no one wakes up on the streets. I mean, there's a few, maybe like 5% of the population wakes up and says, like, I'm gonna go out and hurt people, I'm gonna do horrible things to people, and I'm gonna be a real shitty person, right? Those are, your antisocial psychopaths. But most of us don't wake up with that intention in our head. But then as the day goes by, it's like, sorry, bro. I mean, I didn't want to hurt you, but it's either you or me, and I got to survive here, right? And that's what happens, and that's how this whole vicious cycle just cycles through it, man. That we do horrible things and have horrible things done to us, but it's not the intention, man. It's not how my day started off. I just needed to be okay, right? Like, dude, what did we have? 70 to 100,000 people overdosed last year. Why did they die? Because they just wanted to feel okay. That's literally what killed them, just trying to feel okay. Nothing more. And that's sad, right?
100%. And like, you know, and it's like that's like I notice out there there's a lot of people just trying to treat their undiagnosed trauma, their undiagnosed mental disorders, their undiagnosed whatever. And you know, and it makes it that much easier to slip into addiction because you know, at first like the shit that I was doing was because yeah, I liked getting high. I liked getting fucked up, you know, but then eventually it became like an escape. Like for the first time in my life, I finally felt okay. Like, you know, so I'm going to do whatever is readily available to me to feel okay. And unfortunately, drugs are a lot easier to get a hold of than, you know, resources for therapy.
And it's a lot more fun.
100%. Yeah, a lot more fun.
No one wants to talk about their trauma, but I'm sure going to enjoy forgetting about my trauma. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll just
So
put it on the back burner until it crops up again. And it does in strange and unusual ways, you know?
yeah, it always rears its ugly head, man. It's interesting. I've been really looking at this thing where they talk about where addiction is actually an attachment problem. Because if you think about it, we're in addiction because we can't relate to the outside world and we can't relate to others and we're avoidant or we're anxious and all that. And when we find drugs, it fills that void inside of us that I finally feel something I'm attached to, right? Like, how many times have you said, like, heroin's my best friend, alcohol's always been there for me. It never goes away when everyone else does, and it becomes our new attachment, right? And that's really what it is, man. We fill this void in us with drugs and alcohol, and that's why AA works so well. Because when I finally get there and I put in the work and I start meeting people, all those social needs that I've never had and never been able to cope with finally get relieved, man. And I'm actually able to sit around weirdos and be like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Because that was my biggest fear coming in here. I'm like, God, dude, I'm a weird dude. I'm gonna be stuck with all these like old farts who like don't do weird shit and and don't have all this crazy history and like strange things. And then I went to a CMA meeting. I'm like, okay, I'm home. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Like, yep, you find your tribe, and like a lot of people think it's like these rooms where we're all, perfect people who, go out on ministries every weekend and like we're cookie cutter, clean cut guys. When in like reality, like we're all fucked up. Like, like when I did like I've heard a few fourth steps, and like when I did my own, I expected my sponsor just to cut and run, but like at this point, he had heard everything, so he didn't judge me for it, and like I was able to that kind of helped a little bit too to get over some of my trauma, just being around somebody who's not going to judge you, besides that's not a professional that's being paid to be there, somebody that's like choosing to sit in that seat and help you. That's amazing, because they say the opposite of addiction is connection, like, which I kind of agree with.
Right. No, that's exactly what it is. It's connecting with other people. And I think that's why the fifth step is so important, man, because, dude, like I had some real gnarly shit on my fifth step, man, that I was taken to the grave. And I didn't talk about it at all. And it's only until I heard a friend of mine speak who's dead now, and he talked about some real weird shit he did during, when he was out there, and I realized how free he is. And then I finally got the courage to talk about it. And dude, that's what sets you free, because I'm only as sick as my secrets. That secret that I can't talk about is keeping me from being my true self. Like I'm willing to tell you guys everything about myself, but that one thing I'm not talking about, because if you ever find out about it, you're gonna say you need to go, bro. You're gonna say you're out of here. There's something wrong with you. And until I can finally share that, man, I'm not fully open. But when I finally share that, man, it's like welcome home. Like you're just like the rest of us, and that's what I think set me free, man. Is that dude, there is nothing out there in this world that anyone can come up to me and be like, "Hey, Andrew, guess what I found out about you?" I'm like, I probably have pictures on my phone. You want to? Yeah, like we'll talk about it, bro, because I know it's gonna help someone, dude. I,
Let's
I
go
mean,
to a
I
clip.
yeah, dude, I mean, I share some gnarly stuff at meetings, man, and like people like look around weird and laugh and all that, and then inevitably at the end of the meeting, some dude comes up to me and goes like, "Dude, like, I'm gonna call my sponsor after this and tell him because I did the same exact thing, man, and I it's been killing me." And that's all that matters, dude, that one person got the courage to share something because they don't feel alone. Because when you go to a meeting, man, there's always at least a bunch of dudes that are sitting by the door and they're freaking out and they're going to run out of that meeting and die because they can't feel like they can connect to anybody at that meeting. So when you share truths out there, it lets people relate to you, man. My biggest shames, dude, are what's going to invite someone into this room, and I think it's beautiful, man. And I will share that with anybody, man, because I don't care anymore. It's not shameful to me. It's just what's part of it.
No, exactly. And like what was weird is like, when I finally got the courage up to like, because when I was doing my fifth step, of course you save the worst shit for last because you're working up the courage to like fucking say it. And then you finally say it and your sponsor's like, well, you might have a chance actually at recovering because like
Yeah,
because you know what I mean? You're being honest. And like I was like, shit, well, all right, cool. You didn't throw me out of your house, like you didn't fucking like tell me I was going to hell. Like, okay, cool. Like, cool, let's work with this. And I always tell the dudes like, that dude that I do fourth steps with, I'm like, make sure you tell me all the weird shit. Not like for my own personal entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah, I have sat here for an hour and a half and listened to all of this bullshit, and I do kind of want to hear something interesting, but I'm gonna forget it tomorrow anyway. It doesn't matter. But yeah, make sure you say the weird, gay, weird shit that you've done, like anything that's weird that you've done. Because if you don't tell me the weird shit, you're assured to do more weird shit, if that makes sense.
Right, right, and it's just gonna eat you up, man, and that's the whole point of it, man. Share it all. I mean, dude, I hear some stuff sometimes, and I'm just like, "Oh my god." Usually, like, stuff that how they were victimized as children, man.
Yeah.
God, some of the stuff I hear, and that's what you gotta talk about, man. I mean, you gotta talk about all the bad stuff that happened to you, and that's a big thing with a lot of males, like, I sponsor a lot of, straight males who were sexually abused by males, and, like, that whole shame they carry over, they're like, "I think I'm gay," and all that. It's like, dude, you're not, and that's a huge identity crisis for a lot of straight men who are abused by males.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that was something that I struggled with too, you know what I'm saying? And, like, I think more people in these rooms that are guys struggle with that and, like, than we know because, like, in that culture that we were used to before coming to these rooms, it was never something we'd share. It was like we felt like it was a weakness and we could never be weak, you know? But, like, really, that's, like, our greatest strength because it, like, allows us to connect with somebody that maybe has been through it and we can show them how to get over it, you know? I mean,
Right.
it's just weird when you learn that, like, there's even some stuff, like, on your 4th step that's not your fault at all because you were young, you didn't have a say in that, but the way you're carrying it with you into adulthood and reacting to it today, that you have a choice in, you know? And that's the thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man, and, that's a big thing with me also because, I took, like, a 12-week, trauma in the 12 steps workshop, and, I'll tell you what, man, I have heard some stories from people, man, on, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is these sponsors who wanna talk about stuff that happened to people as children, be like, "Well, what's your part in that as a kid?" And I'm like, "Hold on, bro, there's you can be a victim. If you were abused by your spouse, there's no part you played to it. There's no thing you did to get raped. No, 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 and sponsors are killing people with that type of rhetoric, man, and, it's kind of interesting. When you look in the big book, man, there is nothing in there except a briefly in the ninth step where it talks about forgiveness. It doesn't talk about forgiveness in the fourth and fifth step, man. It says we need to get rid of the resentment. If I don't have to forgive my abuser because that actually re-traumatizes me, invalidates my experience, and that's not part of it, man. It's about breaking that chain that binds me to this person with resentment. That's up to me, between me and God and whoever, if I choose to forgive someone who did great harm to me and victimized me.
100%, and I always recommend to anybody that has faced that type of stuff to seek outside help because you never know, like, with a trauma response, when you have a trauma response, it's like it's happening all over again, like, you don't know the difference. Your mind and body doesn't know the difference when you have that trauma response, it's almost like you're reliving the whole thing over again, and, like, you need professional help for that because I might be a sponsor, I might be a sponsee, I might be in recovery, but I'm not a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't get people over that. And I'm like, find somebody who can. There's people out there that are professionals that can help you, and do it. Like it'll save your life.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, trauma gets down to you at the cellular level. There's no amount of prayer and no amount of talking to your sponsor and sharing about it meetings is going to fix your nervous system. You have to have tried and tested techniques that actually break that thing that binds your nervous system to your trauma. I mean, that's all there is to it, man.
Yeah, and if you wanna get down to, like, on a spiritual level, it says God will do for me what I can't do for myself, but, like, if I can go to therapy and I can get better, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, dude, I sponsor, a lot of chronic relapsers, and it's like they have the home group, they have the service commitment, they're sponsoring dudes, and they still go out there, and it's like, bro, do you not see the missing piece yet? You have this completely whole life of PTSD, and you haven't addressed that. No wonder you keep relapsing because you're doing all this and you're still miserable. Why are you still miserable? Because you're still not healed. Just because you're going through the motions to what everyone else suggests to stay sober, that doesn't apply to you because there's something deeper that needs to be fixed. So no amount of meetings, sponsoring dudes, and having service commitments is going to fix your trauma.
Oh, I agree 100%, and that's exactly where I was at. Because like, this is I'm a chronic relapser too. This is, like, my 2nd time around in, like, long-term recovery, and, like, the first time was because I just ignored those issues. I, like, refused to get any sort of connection with a higher power because, like, I was resentful at God for everything that had happened to me as a kid, you know what I'm saying? And also, like, I just completely ignored my mental health, and, like, one day, it just all caught up to me out of nowhere. Like, I just woke up one day and was like, "Holy shit, like, I'm miserable." and I have everything that the book promised me. I had a girlfriend, a place to live, a nice job. Like I had all these things that like the promises gave me, but I was still miserable and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, well, clearly AA doesn't work. This recovery thing does not work, But what I
Right.
wasn't doing was like, addressing the things I needed to. And that's why it's so important. Like, it's so important. Like, I love talking about that on this podcast because, I don't think it gets brought up enough in the rooms. And I think that, like, no, you don't have to go to the podium and scream that you're on medication or that you're doing therapy. You don't have to, but just do it. Nobody's going to judge you. Probably more. I think there's a lot more people doing that than you would realize. You know what I'm saying? I think you're not alone in that either.
Yeah, not enough. There's a lot more people doing it than we realize, and a lot more people that need to be doing it.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, you can't tell me that you shot heroin for 16 years and nothing traumatic happened to you or nothing bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have some underlying issues.
Right, right, and that's all part of it, man, and you gotta also remember, when AA first came out, man, they weren't really dealing with the people we're dealing with today, people living on the streets and all that. The word PTSD didn't even exist until after World War II. So, these things just weren't even in there, and that's not discrediting what they do, but, there's dual diagnoses that, didn't exist then, and we're just gonna be more successful if we attack it from a full from all angles. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and even back then they called it shell shock, and it was specifically for the group of people that like went to war. So if you didn't go to war, you didn't have PTSD or shell shock or whatever. But like there was all these other people just walking around suffering mentally, and like nobody knew what to call it. So I feel lucky to like live in a time when we do, when we have all these resources available. Like why wouldn't you use them? I mean, if they're at your disposal, these tools, definitely use them.
Yeah, yeah, because, I grew up I'm on the I grew I was I'm 47, so I grew up on that cusp of, like, man up and just deal with it, don't have emotions. I mean, I'm from Boston, dude, like, the guys I looked up to as a kid, like, didn't cry, didn't have emotions, anger was the only acceptable emotion, didn't talk about their needs, and, I mean, dude, that works to a degree, but that's not what I'm trying to be like anymore, man. I don't wanna be like that, and I think learning how to have emotions and feel your emotions and embrace them all is really what living is. Because, dude, my habit, my default is to turn into a robot. That's what I do, man. I lack emotions and I can get by great in life, but am I really living life? Turns out I've actually just been wearing this really cheap suit of armor my whole life that deflects anything from ever affecting me. And that's not living. That's just hiding, living in a tortoise shell my whole life. And I don't want to live like that anymore. So I'd rather feel pain and feel sadness and feel all these things because that's life. I'm not, I've been, since I got, hit 5 years, I've been really working on emotional sobriety. And that's, for me, it's embracing all of it, man. Like going through breakups, all of that stuff, that's all part of life. And if I can accept all of it and realize it's all part of the whole, part of God, whatever you want to call it, that's living. And it's not just chasing after the good and running away from the bad stuff. It's taking every last bit of it in, right? And when I can do all that and reach a level of peace and serenity with whatever is going around with me, that's when joy starts coming from within, right? That's that new
But yeah,
happiness they talk about in the nine-step promises, not my old happiness. I don't want that
yeah.
old happiness. I was wearing Prada shoes, living in a high rise and being a baller. No, it's not the happiness I want anymore.
And that's the thing, yeah, I agree with you. I think you have to embrace it all because the book talks about, and you're gonna like newcomers will hear the word serenity. I did, and I equated that with happiness. And for me today, it doesn't look like happiness. Serenity to me looks like that point of neutrality that they talk about in the book, where like I'm doing this work and like, okay, it would be great to get these results, right? Like the happy, joyous, free, but I might get these results. But because I'm doing the work in AA, I'm okay with whatever result I get. I do the work so not to get the great results, but so I'm okay with whatever result happens, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I used to very strongly when I would talk about the third step and say that it's about radical acceptance, radically accepting life, page 417 stuff. But I've taken it beyond that. Now I call it radical inclusion because, I can accept that so and so is an asshole And well, he's an asshole, but I'm still gonna, I don't like the fact that he's an asshole, right? Or I can accept the fact that the world's a certain way, but I still don't like it. Radical inclusion is me being more like, this is everything, man. I'm gonna take it all in for what it is and try not to attach these emotions to it and judgments to it and just accept every I it's there's an isness to life, right? That I need to finally get in touch with. And that's the, everything just is, dude. And the less labels and judgments I put on life, the more I'm just part of life versus this thing judging and validating it and looking at it as like this external object. I'm just part of life and I'm living with the flow of it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And, and that's like kind of like I tell people that today. I'm like, I try my hardest to, just accept things the way they are and like learn what I can from it. There's obviously going to be things I don't like, but like, do I allow those things? Do I allow those things that I don't like to change who I am and what I'm doing today? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, there's things that are going to affect me, but like, we always have the choice to just reframe the way we're thinking and look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it, dude. Like, I go through some big emotion. What am I going to do with that emotion? When I feel sad, I'm going to do everything I can to block that emotion out. The way I look at that is, man, it's like I'm in this cabin, right? And sadness or emptiness or rejection is pounding at the door. If I just keep it the door, it's just going to keep on pounding, man. What I have to learn to do with my emotions and all feelings is to open the door up and say, "Come on in. Like, let's sit down. Let's talk about this." And knowing full well that there's a back door that when it's done, it can leave. Because that's what happens with emotions, man. The more I push them away, the harder they start kicking at me. I have to finally say, come on in. And when I really start to let my emotions process and feel them, that's how they leave. Because that's what I did my whole life. I've always pushed everything away, man. And it just gets worse and worse and builds up until I snap, right? And that's not living anymore for me.
Yeah, and I think like in early recovery sometimes we get this idea that like the avoidance behavior is healthy. Like we just avoid those emotions, but that's not the case. You have to process them. You have to sit through them. You have to feel them because that's the only way you're going to get stronger and that's the only way you're going to grow as a person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. But, I guess for sometimes in early recovery, for me, man, it was okay to live in that bubble for a little while, right? Because, dude, like, it's same with trauma, man. Like, I know a lot of people who've done trauma therapy, and they're like, I would not recommend someone in their first year of sobriety doing this because it's too much. So if I got to go to sober living, only surround myself with people in sobriety and live in this little happy bubble and have this kind of toxic positivity where everything's great. I'm on a pink cloud, and so be it, dude. If that's what's keeping me sober for the first year or two, cool. But eventually, I got to get to this point where I do have to start growing, and eventually I start seeing through the bullshit, and I'm being like, all right, I'm lying to myself about reality here, and. But I got to do for my dude. My first goal when I get sober for the first year is to not die. That's it, dude. Literally, don't die, don't go to prison. Anything after that is secondary, but those are my only goals. And that's what I tell my sponsees, man. I don't want you to focus on anything else except not dying this year. Right. And then later on, we'll work on that. Don't work on about your career now. Just get a job, then get a good job, and then build your career. It's like you got to keep your priorities very, very straight. And yeah, sometimes I think that does involve lying to yourself a little and living in a bubble.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. Like I think at first it's okay, but I mean like, even cuz this time around like and like I mean it's weird because I kind of had some experience in recovery before, although I did relapse and so like this time around like it almost like the guilt and shame and whatever of like having time and then going out like that kept me out, you know what I'm saying, for a while because I was fucking embarrassed. And so this time around I kind of went into it with like the knowing that I was going to have to deal with that stuff eventually, but like I didn't even I mean, because where I was at, they had therapists, obviously, but like I didn't even get too deep into it with them. You know what I'm saying? Like I waited until I was like 6, 9 months almost to like really start going to like an outside therapist and talking and like, I felt ready at that point, but even then we did the work, still doing the work very slowly, it's not an overnight thing, and I mean, I know people who have been in therapy as like for years and years and years, you know? And I mean, if it helps, I say keep doing it. It's like the meetings. You know what I'm saying? Like I know people, obviously we know people who have 25 years that still go to meetings, and you should. They help. If they help, you go. You know, you do what needs to be done to help yourself and not die, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, dude, that's what it comes down to. It's doing what you know works, and, that's why, in that group we're both a part of, the fewest numbers of those guys are guys with 2 and 3 years of sobriety. Because what happens is everyone talk, "You just gotta get that year, man, just get that year," and then they get that year, and all of a sudden, "I don't need to go to meetings, I don't need to sponsor dudes, I don't need to call my sponsor," and they stop doing exactly what got them to that 1 year, and then they
Yeah,
wonder why everything shits the bed on them.
exactly. And like, it's so weird. I was even talking to my sponsor the other day, or well, before he left, I was like, man, my second year in recovery, I'm like busier in AA than I was in my first year, if that makes sense. But it looks different. Now I'm like meeting sponsees, I'm bringing H&I's places, I'm going to meetings and chairing them, So like it looks different. Like I'm being of service this year. Whereas like last year I was just like consuming the program. Now like I'm like out there like promoting it a little, if that makes sense. And I love it, I mean, I do more AA now than I did in my first year, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, dude, like, double down when you get that first year, man, because now's where shit gets real, right?
Yeah.
And then, 5, 10 years, that's what people call AA menopause, because that's where everything you just like, "I've been doing this 10 years, I don't need to really do it anymore, I'm not seeing any benefit." It's like, this is the benefit, you
This
know?
is the benefit, you're alive,
Yeah, yeah,
And
but
because
people
yeah,
forget that.
I just got 2 years, and, like, and since then, I knew last time I fell off around this time, so, like, instead of, like, easing up, like, hitting the brakes, I put the gas pedal down and was like, "I need to be more involved," you know what I'm saying? Like, especially around this time, because last time I went out, I had a little over 2 years, and now I have a little over 2 years, but, like, it's different this time around because, like, I'm more involved, like, I'm not like, it's weird, like, last time I was saying stuff to people who were, like had my best interest at heart, right? Like, and the people that I got sober with last time are, like, still sober to this day, so they have, like, a little over a decade, which is amazing, like, I got super lucky in that aspect, so, but, like, they would call me out and say stuff like, "You're fucking up, you're doing this," and my response would be like, "My recovery doesn't have to look like yours. This time around, I take suggestion wherever I can get it, and I just do what's suggested of me. I stay teachable, and I try to do more AA than I did last year, And I mean, it doesn't hurt. It hasn't hurt so far.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's a pretty simple equation, right? And even, the weird part is none of that is in the book. Get a home group, get a survey. I mean, none of that actually talks about in the book, but that's what seems to be the formula that works. Get a home group, get a service commitment, sponsor guy, standard stuff, man. And when I do that, because really what it comes down to is I have a routine, right? My whole life, I've never had a routine except getting high, right? I need to have something that I continuously do that I'm committed to and have a dedication to that just keeps me going. I can't live that chaotic life anymore because chaotic life really just leads to chaos.
Yeah, and and then in the program you meet guys who like encourage you to do the right thing and like live a better life, whereas like I was used to people encouraging me to like do bad things. And like, I mean like you were talking about smoking crack. I did that for a very long time when I lived out in DC. And like I worked for this meat company. Like we would go door to door and sell meat. And like
I
I was
know
like
those
their top
guys.
seller. And like they would let me smoke crack in the van and drink and whatever I did. And I could show up one day 3 days a week, however many I wanted to. They didn't care. They were just like, "As long as you produce, we don't care what you do." And, like,
Right.
they would have a driver for me, drive me around because, like, I could sell more than anyone else. So they, like,
Ye
encouraged me to, like and, like, one day, like, they were like, because I would constantly go to people's doors, sell them everything in the van and the freezer that we had in our van. I'd sell that too. And, like, they were like, "You sold the freezer that you keep the meat in the van?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I did, dude."
That's too funny, man. Yeah, and that's what it's all about, bro, right?
Yeah, and all these people around me were like, just, they never, none of them said, "Stop what you're doing, you're gonna die," because like it benefited them. My addiction benefited them because they knew I would keep coming back to work. You know what I'm saying? Because I would need more money for dope, so I would just keep coming back to work whenever I needed to. But today it's like I got these guys in the room that are like encouraging me to like do the right thing and become a better person and like live. So it's like a great contrast. And like I tell people, it's hard to trust people at first, of course, but you're gonna get around a group of guys that like say these things and they're going to say them over and over and over. And like eventually you're going to believe them because you see them working in their life. You see them living a certain way. And like eventually you're going to really believe that they want the best for you no matter what. And like that's the hard part, I think, at first was learning to trust people.
Yeah, and, dude, I piss off a lot of people because I tell people the way it is, I call people out on their bullshit, and people don't like that. I'm like, "What do you want me to tell you you're doing great and great job, buddy, when I can clearly see you fucking up? Like, what kind of love is that?" That's bullshit, and I expect people to do that to me also, right? Because, I mean, dude, that's what it's all about. That's what we're here for, and if I hurt your feelings, sorry, dude, but you know what? Like, I'm trying to make us all better here, and we do that by being honest and actually giving a shit, because if I didn't give a shit, I wouldn't say it.
100%. And like it was crazy. Like one of the best chefs I ever worked under was one of the meanest sons of bitches I ever met in my life. And like I was like, "Why are you so mean to everyone?" And he's like, "Because I'd rather hurt your feelings than see you get actually hurt in the
Yeah,
kitchen." And,
right.
like, I've noticed that in life too. Like, he meant very well and wanted to see everyone succeed, and he was super good at his job. And, like, I've noticed people in this program that are super successful that, like, just want other people to succeed. They care less about how you feel about something and more what you're willing to do about it. So if they hurt your feelings in the process, like, it's really just to kinda save your life, you know?
Yeah,
They
I
just
mean, I care more about you staying alive than your feelings, dude. I mean, feelings get broken all the time, but that's just what it's about, man. It's about, this is, you're doing something that I know is going to kill you. I have seen enough people doing this exact thing, and I know you're going to wind up, you're going to be flying a sign under the 17 in 6 months if you keep doing this, because it's like what you said, man. Like, I gotta be a good dude, man. I can't fucking stay sober Monday through Friday and then go home on the weekend and beat the shit out of my girlfriend. Like, that doesn't work that way, right? Like, unless I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs, if I start thinking bad shit, I'm gonna start doing bad shit. If I start doing bad shit, I'm gonna feel like shit. And when I feel like shit, I smoke crack. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, yeah. And, and, like, it was weird because that crack for me was one of those lines in the sand. I was like, "I'm never gonna smoke crack." But, I mean, I was doing a bunch of coke, and then, like, I was in DC, and I gave somebody money for coke, and they came to me, and they had crack, and I was like, "What is this?" They're like, "It's DC. There's no coke here." And I'm like, "Well, I already spent the money. I might as well." It was that simple. These lines in the sands, these boundaries that we used to have in our old life that we would break for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying? And then you get sober and you put up these healthy boundaries and you're around people that are like living a healthy life and it's just so crazy, because I know a lot of guys that come in the room and they're like willing to do this but not this, and I'm like, you should probably just be willing to do it all, because if you're not willing to sponsor guys and do the steps but you're like willing to like go out and smoke crack, like that doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're willing to do one thing that's going to hurt you, be willing to do something that might help you. And if you do it and it doesn't work, then talk shit about it. But like I've never seen anybody like in this program that has followed the formula and like lives a shitty life. I've never met anybody that's like, 5, 10, 20 years sober. That's like, I did all the things I was supposed to do. I did them the right way. I was good to people and like, shit, I live a crap life. Like
Right.
I've never seen that. I've never
Right,
seen it.
right. Yeah, and I mean, dude, the thing is, the thing you're not willing to do is the thing that's gonna take you out. I'm willing to do whatever my sponsor says, but this whole thing about getting a girlfriend, no, I'm not gonna listen to that. And then what happened? They walk in on their new girlfriend with some other dude and they're getting high that night, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
always the one thing you're not willing to do that takes you out, bro. Every time.
Yeah, and I mean, and a lot of the things that I see in early recovery, and for me, like this time around, like, I had lost everything. I had nothing to get back, if that makes sense. Like I lost, like there was nothing that I was like, oh, I can't. Maybe if I do good, I'll get this thing back. Like it wasn't like that. Everything was destroyed, and like I almost feel bad for the guys that come in that are like, maybe I could get my family back, because I'm like, dude, you need to have some patience. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's about like a changed behavior. It's about like approaching the situation differently, and how, like, because they don't want to hear it right now. You can't call them and be like, sorry for, second mortgaging our house and like, doing all this dope and like cheating on you. But like, I'm 60 days sober. So like, isn't that great? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, dude, for me, like the dudes that have experienced complete destruction are the ones that I can work with the best, because it's like you said, the wife ain't coming back. There is no home to go to. They're burnt on every level, and there's no like, well, I'm just gonna do this and then get my old lady. No, dude, they're just like, I'm gonna die. Like I have nowhere else to go. Like my rock bottom had a basement, and then there was a cave below that. Like there's nothing I can do from this point, so I can only go up, and that's the only place to go because I am completely without hope. And it's lame, but I've found that pain is grace, man. That's how I learn. I only learn through bitter pain and loss. I'm not that guy who's been like, "Oh, wow, I saw so and so do really great. Like, I'm gonna do that." No, dude. Or I saw Bill rob a bank and went to prison. I better not do that. I'm the guy who says, I could probably rob that bank better. And then I have to experience it myself. My wisdom, I consider learning from other people's mistakes. I lack wisdom, dude. I got to experience myself. And that's why pain is the great catalyst for change. I got so beaten down by life that I finally said, like, I guess it's me, right? It's me. And I got to change me.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you're right, because 'cause I'd be that guy where I would be like, "You know what? I saw what Bill did wrong, and I'm just gonna do that differently." Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think I
Yeah.
could get away with robbing the bank. Or
And
like when
have
you
different
date a girl
results.
that
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Or like when you date a girl that cheats on her boyfriend with you, and you're like, "Oh, it'll be different because it's me." Nope, she's gonna cheat on you too, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta see the signs, pay attention to them. It's not gonna be different, like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's cultivating wisdom, man, is being able to learn from all that. And God, is it hard to do, but I'm getting better at it. You know,
yeah, I
AA has
mean,
taught me that a lot.
today there are definitely some people in this program and situations, of course, like, today I'm like willing to take their advice and like when they tell me what the outcome is probably going to be because they've experienced it, I'm willing to believe them on that and like not have to go and do it myself. Does that make sense? Like I can
Yeah.
build upon their knowledge today. Whereas it used to be, nope, it's going to be different for me because I'm different and it may work out for me. That delusion is gone today, at least. So that's a
Yeah,
big
I
step.
mean, dude, in AA, there's 2 people to learn from, the guys who are the shining examples and the ominous warnings, and I learned from both of them, maybe the ominous warnings even more.
Yeah.
Dude, I have friends who are chronic relapsers. I love having them come speak for me in my meetings, even when they have like 2 weeks of sobriety, because I'm like, this is homie. Everything don't he's gonna tell you what not to do in recovery. And that's what it's a negative skewed pitch. This is everything I did and how I fucked up everything. Don't follow my path. Don't follow this path. And they're great. I love it when they speak.
Well, yeah, dude, I've learned so much from that, and I mean, even from my own experience with like chronic relapsing, and that was the thing. Like, there was so many times where I knew I needed to get sober and wanted to get sober, and just couldn't for some reason do it. And then I always came down to like why I couldn't do it was because there was things I wasn't willing to do. You know what I'm saying? And this time around, I was just willing to do whatever, and the stuff I didn't want to do was the stuff that wound up saving my life. You know?
Absolutely, dude. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we live in comfort zones, right? And the crazy part is if you really look at life, man, I would sometimes rather be in a comfortable hell than an uncomfortable heaven, right? And especially with our relationships and everything. I'm so used to chaos and drama that that's like my standard operating, right? I'm like, all this terrible shit's going on around with me. My nervous system is actually like, oh, this ain't that bad, right? But when I'm getting into something that's new and fucking terrifying, but great, I'm like, I got to get the hell out of here. I don't want to do this.
Oh, yeah, and, like and that's the thing, I think it's, like, you have to fear, like, when the fear of the unknown is greater than or so how does it go? When your fear of change, it finally is less than the fear of the consequences you're facing today is when, like, you get to move forward. It goes something like that, but, like, when you fear the unknown less than, like, what the change might bring, because it's like it goes back to that the devil we know thing. Like, when I stayed in addiction for so long because, like, I knew if I woke up that day, yeah, there was gonna be a chance that I would die, but, like, I also knew, like, if I went and I did this thing, I was gonna get high, and, like, those were the consequences I knew, and, like, what would be the other consequences if I just decided to stop? It was this unknown thing to me, and I was terrified of that for a long time?
No, absolutely, man. I mean, the thought of the unknown is the most scary thing for humans, period. I think, man. I just go about my routine that's safe, because it always comes down to feeling safe, man, and that's what it's all about. And when I don't feel safe, man, my nervous system freaks out, but that's where the change happens, man. It's the only way I can change, and I don't have to take leaps and bounds, man. I just got to be a little bit better today, tomorrow than I was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Every step I take, I go a little bit higher, and the higher I get, the better the view gets. I just got to remember that.
And, and even my sponsor says it, some days you're going to fall short and being sober just has to be enough. And you take it as a learning experience. Like there's certain days where I wake up and like my character defects are glaring and like, people are pissing me off because, he always tells me, patience, love, and tolerance is our code. Not patience, love, and tolerance unless that other person's being a bitch, but like all the time. And there's days where I fall short on that for sure. And I learn from my mistakes today instead of just like, and I'm willing to change instead of just being stuck in like what I know?
Right. I mean, dude, I think the most fundamental part about the 10th step is mindfulness and awareness, right? That's the difference. Today, I can say I'm in my defects and I'm having a shitty day and I'm not really feeling right, but I recognize it. Before I never recognized that. I was just running around pissed off and medicated. But the beauty now is that I can recognize it. And if I'm aware of it, then I have even the ability to change. If I'm not aware of it, dude, I'm burnt. It's just like I have weeds in my garden, man, and I'm not paying attention. I might come out the next day and I'm like, holy shit, the garden's overrun with weeds, right? At least now I have the awareness to be like, that's a weed. I should pick it. And that doesn't mean I will, but I should pluck that weed up, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, all right. You were saying, and I kind of want to get into this before. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I definitely want to get into your story a little, if that's okay. You said that. Were you a chronic relapser? I mean, it kind of sounds. Or
so I
not
got
really.
sober as a teenager, stayed sober about 4 years, relapsed for about 15, got sober, and then someone tried to murder me. I got sober for about 4 or 5 years, then relapsed again. None of that was working a program. And then when I finally in 2020 came in and started working the program, I've been clean since. But basically, I got high for 30 years with like a few years of just clean time from being scared straight or whatever, but no, not working an active program.
Okay, awesome. Because yeah, man, you said the FBI kicked down your door. How did you get to that point? How did it go from like being like a normal guy to like the FBI kicking down your door?
So the Tempe police kicked down my door 20 years earlier and they had the wrong address on the warrant. So that was crazy, man. I mean, that was like 20 years I was facing. And I came back and I looked at the warrant, it had the wrong address. I'm like, you would think that would have been my holy shit, you better change your ways, get out of jail free card, but I didn't. But I don't know. Once I start smoking meth, dude, because I lived in South Carolina for a while and only smoked crack. And when I do that, like I would not consider selling drugs. But the minute I start smoking meth, I think I'm El Chapo. And based on my wonderful experience before selling drugs, where the Tempe kicked my door down, I was like, well, I'm not going to sell 8 balls and stuff. I'm going to sell pounds because I'm going to have less traffic. And next thing I know, I'm selling 40 pounds a week. So it just
Yeah, the
progressed
math
that
works out
way.
on that.
It,
Yeah,
it,
that's
it
solid
just,
math.
I ran a good business and I gave people good prices and had good product. And next thing I know, I'm dealing with the Sinaloa drug cartel, and it just progressed, man.
Yeah, and like the weird thing is like it's always the people that you would never expect to be around the crazy dangerous people that are like always the most well connected. You know what I'm saying? Like when you look at somebody and you're like, "Oh, that dude, he probably ain't shit. He's probably like very well connected." It's like cuz you'd look at me and you'd be like, "Who is this guy?" And like the people I hung around were terribly dangerous people that I had no business being around. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? Like
right.
I would never have put myself in the room with those people ever in life? But, again, once I start smoking meth, once I start doing heroin or fentanyl or any sort of mind altering substance, again, like I feel like, I do feel like I'm El Chapo. I do feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like I do feel like I can get away with it? And at least I can get away with it. And if I can't, I'll see it coming. And I never see it coming ever, ever.
I had friends tell me, dude, there's a drone above your house. And I'm like, smoke, you are smoked out. Turns out the FBI had a drone above my house. So they were actually, yeah. So
Like
I
the
was like,
one time it was actually reality that
the
there really
one
is a
time there
drone.
was literally a drone above my house videotaping the whole thing. And I was like, you are smoked out.
Yeah. Like those people that are like walking around, they're following me. Like it's like the one person they really are following, but like
Yeah,
nobody
it's
believes
600
because
pages of
you're
surveillance on me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy because things escalate so quickly and we don't even realize it, you know? Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I always tell people they're like, "Well, how'd you become homeless?" I'm like, "Gradually." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like I woke up, "Oh, I'm outside today." No, like I it became homeless because I started getting more and more comfortable with like certain things and like you just start accepting certain things slowly and then one thing turns into another, turns into another, it turns into another and then you're living outside. You know? Like that's it's the way it is. You don't just wake up homeless one day. Chances are you woke up and like, you needed to you started hanging around people that lived outside and having them to your apartment. You know what I'm saying? And then like you got comfortable around them. And then when you got evicted, you were like, that's fine. I'll just go with them. I'll just live outside with them. Like it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. And then, fast forward a few years and you're sleeping behind a dumpster, your hands are bleeding, you have nothing to your name, and like, you know, you're miserable. So yeah, it's just the way that it goes so quickly. Like, and that's the thing in addiction for me. Nothing I ever got in addiction was I able to keep. It was never real, you know? Like I'd get something and I would always think to myself, I wonder how long I'm going to be able to hold on to this before like it just goes away or I turn it to shit, because I always knew I was never reliable enough to like keep doing what I was doing to survive out there and have something. I was always the person that like, eventually getting high became more important than making money or like having a roof over my head.
Right, right. I mean, dude, it's a gradual state of decay, it's like you said, unless your apartment burns down or something, it's a gradual state of decay, and that's just how it works, but normal people, their house burns down and they go to the American Red Cross or get help and do resources. We go out and get high.
Yeah, 100%, I mean, because it's like, I looked at my life, I was like, "Well, how can things get any worse? They can't, so I might as well just get high," And in, like, reality, I was just compounding every problem that I had into, like, not dealing with it today, and eventually, like, you have to deal with your issues one way or another. It's either gonna be, like they say in the book, jail, institutions, or death, and, like, everybody has to face their issues somehow, you know?
You gotta deal with your issues or your issues are gonna deal with you, right?
Yes. Yes. That's a much better way of putting it because yeah, like, I don't know. It's like life is really good today, am I where I want to be? Not necessarily. I mean, I'm making progress. That's great. But I remember there was a time in my life where I wanted everything I have today. And I like remember that?
Yeah, dude, I mean, had you asked me 30, 40 years ago what I wanted in life, and I just wanna be happy. Pretty
Yeah,
fucking happy right now, dude. I mean, life's good.
exactly.
I'm
And like
content and I have joy.
100%. And that's the thing. Like, it's not about the stuff that people can see is what I say. It's about the stuff they can't see. That's why I'm like really happy. Like all the stuff on the inside of me feels really good today. And like that's the real gift, is like I get to get up and like I enjoy my own company today. Whereas like that was never the case. I never enjoyed being in my own company ever. Like I fucking hated it. Maybe I would say that I liked my own company, but like if I really did, would I be getting loaded 24/7 trying to forget who I was?
Yeah. I mean, dude, in the past, the things that made me happy were either illegal or they're taxable. Nowadays, there's nothing like that. Everything that makes me happy comes from within here, man, and no
Yeah,
one can take that from me. That's the most beautiful part.
absolutely. And yeah, man, like it's just so cool. Like I just tell people, like, if you're new to this thing, like, find people that you can trust in this program because you can trust them, even though it might seem like you can't. And if you have other issues that you need to deal with, like deal with them. But for the first year or so, like you said, just stay alive and stay sober and things will work out. Maybe not the way you planned for them to or the way you wanted them to, because it's really not up to us.
Yeah, I mean, faith is knowing that everything is always going to work out one way or the other. Don't mean it's gonna work out how I expected it to work out, but it's always worked out. It always has and it always will until the day I die. So that's faith, knowing that it's all gonna be okay, man. I just have to be open-minded enough to see that.
Exactly. And like it's like, there's definitely something higher than me at work here because like I didn't create the mountains, I didn't create the sun or whatever. So like who am I to say that the outcome of a situation, like if that grand design made the outcome of my situation, who am I to say that that's worse or better than what I had in mind? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, who am I?
Yeah, because we just have an egocentric view of how everything happens and how it happens to me, about me, and revolves around me. And dude, I'm nothing. I'm a speck. And, I just got to remember that at all times, man. My separation, that finite self, is what keeps me bound to the fact that I look at me as separate than you. And that's the whole basis of my ignorance, is the fact that I consider myself separate and more important than you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And when it comes down like to that victim versus creator mentality, where like the victim mentality, the world is happening to me, and the creator mentality, I am happening to the world.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite lines, brother.
Dude, man, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate you taking your time out of work and everything. Like, yeah, I just want to say thank you. Is there anything that you're doing, or any events that you want to promote, or anything that you have coming up that you kind of want to let people know about?
If anyone ever wants to come to our Fentanyl Anonymous meetings on Wednesdays at 6:45 at Studio 164, man, we do a step study, and we always have speakers, and it's a great meeting. So that's about it.
I have been to that meeting. It
Oh,
was
hell
like
yeah.
yeah, I've been to that meeting. It was like a year ago, or a little over a year ago. And it's a great meeting. It's one great meeting, you
Yeah, we
know?
get like 100 people. So yeah,
Yeah, it's a great meeting. And I think there needs to be more fentanyl anonymous meetings around the valley, you know? I think
yeah.
there needs to be more. I think it's a cool fellowship, and it's definitely needed right now because there's a ton of people out there that are like, feel like they can't go to CMA because they never smoked meth, or can't go to AA because like alcohol wasn't their thing, but like they were definitely fentanyl addicts, you
Uh-huh.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think I think it's a huge thing. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. That was